specifically to kind of counter all this European stuff. And I don't know how much he's finding. I was going to call him before this lecture, actually, to see what he's learned. There are weird things. For example, there's a portfolio that was made in Camp Oglethorpe in Georgia by a German prisoner of war. So it was produced in America, but by a German soldier of World War I. It's kind of a beautiful little portfolio, oddly enough. Reminiscent of Roger Shimomura to some degree. Kind of same kind of views of the same kind of place. Yeah?
I can't remember the artist's name. The African-American artist that's done the banjo upstairs.
Henry Tanner.
Tanner? Okay. Mm-hmm.
He was in World War I, and I have seen at least two small etchings.
Huh.
Canteen, I think, so not of the horrors of war, but more of the soldiers in
I'm not familiar with that. It'd be fascinating to see.
I don't know whether he's done more. I don't know.
Yeah. It's such a huge topic that it's hard to do it justice, but there's a lot of Native Americans in World War I. And I've talked to a few people at Haskell about this generically, but I don't know if there's any art that came out of it from the Native American fighters. Interesting question, yeah. This one over here, I think, yeah.
You mentioned a couple of the artists, their works were suppressed, I presume, before the war, after the war, or
During.
before the ascendancy of the Nazis?
Oh, yeah, this would have been during World War I, during the actual war years, so 1914 to 1918, that they would have been suppressed because, while in the process of war, they were deemed inappropriate by the powers that be. And I suspect, well, of course, de Groot also experienced this in Belgium, and I suspect that there may be examples in England and France as well, but I'm not familiar with those. Yeah?
Did you say you had about 4,000 prints so far that you put together?
That's just the photographs that I've taken, individual things I've taken photographs of.
And the dates of when these prints were made, or if it's been,
For the most part, 1914 to 1918, and then there's probably 15% that were done in the years afterward, maybe more, 20%, because it's very interesting to see what happens in the 1920s. All the the robots appear. I think the impact of machine and mechanization you see big time in the 20s in film and art, what have you. And I strongly suspect that's harnessed the World War I experience.
so it kind of begs the question, were these guys running out of the prints?
Well, no, Deeks had paper with him when he was in the trenches. Erich Heckel, who did that first print of Parkzee, I think, just this nice landscape, it was done near Ostende, scavenged paper from medical wrappings. He was in the medical corps. So he took these cheap, like carton paper that was used to wrap medical supplies and used that for his drawings. So they scavenged materials, and I think a lot of them did go back and do their prints after the war when they had proper materials and everything, but there was certainly a lot done during the war, and Deeks is one of the primary figures who did this. And Heckel was another, and I think that people like, I think a number of the British artists who were actually hired as war artists certainly had ready access to material and did their work right on site. Others here can probably answer that better than me. So, yeah.
One of the plane crash in Germany made, and I'm not sure, maybe it made me think of Lyndon Lewis and the Forces.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, they're coming out of Futurism and Marinetti. But yeah, there's a war issue of the great Wyndham Lewis periodical, the name of which I'm blocking right now. which was full of these kind of explosive images. And of course, they were all fired up with the kind of pro-war aesthetic of Marinetti and this idea that the war would be over soon and it would be a cleansing thing for Europe and all this kind of stuff that turned out to be utterly false. But yeah, absolutely, Wyndham Lewis, very similar aesthetic, but I think driven more by the ideas of futurism than machines are good, right? Marinetti called himself Europe's caffeine at this time, and he was going around influencing a lot of people, one of whom was Wyndham Lewis. Yeah, good question. Yeah?
Would you want to address the issue of mental illness and how depression many times needs therapy in the area of drawings, and how that the artist has therapeutic value out of his work? And how many artists are there that do have this problem, and how it drives their art?
Yeah, I don't have any way to really answer that specifically, but for many of the artists who weren't doing, propagandistic images or whatever, you have to assume that they're at least contributing to the need to, to get something out, to expunge bad memories and this kind of thing. I have a really layperson's kind of level of sophistication to answer that. But I mean, you look at someone like Deeks, and he's an amazing person because he was, I think, kind of incapable of telling a lie when he turned to his art. So he really takes us there, and then after the war, he takes us to family and to other things that enter his life at that time. So you kind of see these psychic changes sometimes, and some of the artists who are most, maybe who draw most deeply from psychological realm. I can't really answer it too well, but it's a very interesting arena, to be sure. Okay, we should probably wrap it up. Thank you all very much.